So she's already spoke to them and confirmed, oh yeah, we were here.
Yeah, you heard that right. One of Foolio's killers just admitted they were at the scene. A jail call between Foolio's alleged killers just leaked, and what's in it is beyond chilling. From casually discussing the murder to even hinting at who paid them to do it, the tape reveals way more than anyone expected. I have all the details. Let's get into it. The call, laughter after the kill. We got him. That's what one of the voices said on the jailhouse phone call, calm, almost smug, like they just scored a win, not taking a life. The call lasts less than 2 minutes, but every second drips with chilling confidence, the kind that feels more calculated than chaotic, the kind that makes your skin crawl. But let's back up, because the story of this murder, and the voices behind that call, goes way deeper than just one phone recording. Julio Foolio was gunned down in Tampa, Florida, on June 23, 2024, during what was supposed to be a birthday celebration. He had been posting on social media that night, telling fans where to pull up, inviting them to a pool party. What he didn't know was that he was being followed, not by fans, but by enemies. According to law enforcement, the suspects tailed Foolio's movements throughout the city using both social media and direct surveillance. They waited until nearly 4:30 in the morning to make their move, right outside a Holiday Inn. Foolio was ambushed, hit with bullets from multiple firearms. 3 others were injured but survived. Authorities later identified the shooters as Sean Gaithright, Richard Murphy, and Davian Murphy, with 2 other suspects, Isaiah Chance and Elisa Andrews, accused of aiding in the planning. But what really tied this group together wasn't just street affiliation. It was their apparent desire to turn a homicide into a performance. According to prosecutors, the level of coordination between the 5 suspects was unprecedented. They all had one purpose in coming to Tampa, the state attorney said, and that was to kill Source. And now we know how they felt after the job was done. The leaked jailhouse call was recorded just days after their arrests. The audio was sent to local media, then leaked online. In the call, one of the suspects can be heard laughing about the aftermath, referencing the viral news coverage. Another jokes about how they ain't even see it coming. One even calls Foolio by name and refers to him as done for. Let that sink in. A man was gunned, down in a public space. His killers are locked up, and they're laughing.
No, that work works hard to get shot on. Man, they shot his foot off last year, give him that pirate nub. Man, that post still got his foot shot off, ain't supposed to be bouncing around on his birthday.
This isn't just cold-blooded murder, it's a culture of mockery. The killers didn't just eliminate Foolio, they're mocking the very idea that he thought he was safe. But what really struck investigators was the tone. There was no fear in the call, no desperation, not even a flicker of regret. In fact, the mood was almost celebratory. One detective who reviewed the call said it reminded him of locker room talk, only in this case, the game was murder. And here's the thing, police had already suspected gang involvement. The Hillsborough State Attorney's Office revealed in a press conference that the suspects were members of or affiliated with ATK and 1200, a known rival group to Foolio's 6-block gang Source. The investigation uncovered hours of surveillance, cell phone records, and even license plate data proving that the suspects followed Foolio from venue to venue throughout the night. It was all part of an elaborate setup that ended in tragedy.
3 shooters exit a vehicle and walked in the direction of the hotel. They murdered Jones with a handgun and 2 rifles. This barrage of gunfire also struck 3 additional victims.
If that sounds military and precision, you're not wrong. And yet, despite all this coordination, what followed was sloppiness. The suspects didn't cover their tracks well. Cell tower pings, automatic license plate readers, and eyewitness testimony quickly helped police connect the dots. It didn't take long before the arrests began. That's when the mood changed, from stealth to showtime. One of the most damning pieces of evidence, the surveillance footage. It shows 3 shooters walking in formation, flanking the hotel entrance, and opening fire from multiple angles. One suspect even appears to check for movement before reloading. It's the kind of footage that typically makes its way into a courtroom, but now it's online.
And they are shooting at Charles now, and you can see that he's the passenger in that car that's moving and trying to flee. And again, they're still shooting at him.
So why did this case blow up online? Because the public isn't just seeing the crime, they're hearing the aftermath. This leaked call is doing more than rattling nerves. It's confirming what many feared, that some of these killings aren't driven by desperation, but by a lust for notoriety, fame, clout. Even Foolio's critics are unnerved, because if this is how the accused react after a high-profile killing, what does it say about the next generation watching? And for Foolio's mother, who arrived at the press conference just hours after learning of the arrest, it's not just about her son, it's about accountability.
His fans knew him as Julio Foolio, but to his mom, he's Charles. We're fighting to make sure that she gets justice.
And the question remains, how many more young black men will be memorialized in Hashtags before something changes. And if you think that phone call was chilling, wait until you hear what one of the suspects did right before the shooting and how it could blow this case wide open. The setup, betrayal, bugs, and a second jail call. For most people, betrayal comes quietly, but for Foolio, it might have started with a text message and ended with bullets. I've exposed how 5 suspects followed and murdered rapper Foolio during his birthday weekend. We unpacked the disturbing jail call that surfaced days later, callous, arrogant, and bone-chilling in its casual celebration of death. But what if I told you that might not have been the first time Foolio's name came up in a jail call, and that one of the people closest to him might have helped set the entire thing in motion? Because the next layer of this story isn't about what happened after the murder. It's about the clues that were already there before the trigger was ever pulled. Let's go back 48 hours before Foolio's death. He had just arrived in Tampa, promoting his birthday bash on Instagram stories and other platforms, telling fans to pull up, flashing bottles, party details, and his location on camera.
It got to this bit. Tampa, Florida, man. Pool party push up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, man.
What Foolio likely didn't realize was how many people were watching not to party, but to plot. Investigators believe his location updates acted like a breadcrumb trail, making it almost too easy for enemies to track him. But here's where it gets worse. Authorities are now looking into the possibility that someone in Foolio's circle shared his location, not on accident, but on purpose. According to official police statements, surveillance showed that the suspect vehicles were already trailing Foolio from earlier venues, not just at the Holiday Inn, which raises a disturbing question. How did they know his full itinerary? Even more alarming, Foolio's own mother mentioned in a brief with state prosecutors that her son was trying to lay low, which conflicts with his public posts. Friends reportedly said he was planning to switch hotels that night, but the shooters got there first. So either they were watching very closely or someone was feeding them inside information. And here's where the plot twists hard. 2 independent sources familiar with the investigation say there was a second jail call, one that hasn't been made public yet, and allegedly involves a different tone, less cocky, more coded, more nervous. Law enforcement has yet to confirm whether this second call involved a confession, but what we do know is that one suspect began asking questions like, how much they really got on us though? Who talking? Questions like that, when placed next to surveillance footage, cell tower triangulation, and gang connections, paint a picture of suspects who knew what they were doing and now fear the consequences. And here's the kicker. Foolio had enemies, public ones, but he also had friends who flipped. One of the most damning allegations currently under review is that an associate who had fallen out with Foolio was quietly working with rivals in ATK and 1200, the groups law enforcement believe were behind the plot. The informant's name has not been released, but the timeline aligns suspiciously well with the leaked location data and texts shared among the defendants. Was Foolio set up by someone he once trusted? Multiple sources say yes. And if true, it would mean this wasn't just a revenge hit, it was a calculated betrayal. According to a former detective turned gang expert, this kind of coordination is rare outside cartel activity. What stands out most? The blending of street tactics with digital trail exploitation. IG stories, live location, even facial recognition cameras near the Holiday Inn. They played chess, one retired officer noted. The streets used to be about muscle. This was surveillance, tech, and surgical planning. They stalked him like a target. That's why the second jail call, the one law enforcement is still reviewing, matters so much, because it could reveal who they thought was safe to talk to and who might be flipping. But even with airtight digital evidence, prosecutors may still face hurdles. Why? Because several of the suspects, including Elisa Andrews, are believed to be considering plea deals, but only if they're granted reduced charges. Andrews' attorney has already publicly stated she is not waiving her right to a speedy trial, which could mean she plans to use that leverage to cut a deal fast source. And you better believe that deal could come with names. Names of who leaked Foolio's location, names of who bought the weapons, names of who's next on the list, because this wasn't a one-off. This was part of a chain reaction. At a press conference just days after the murder, Jacksonville Sheriff TK Waters didn't mince words.
These individuals have chosen lives of urban terrorism. Florida, Tampa, JSO, Jacksonville, Miami, wherever you are. Will not tolerate foolishness. Will hold you accountable for your criminal actions.
But the bigger question remains, if these calls were being monitored, why weren't they stopped? Sooner, why were the suspects, many already on police radar, able to coordinate such a lethal attack and then laugh about it? And what is law enforcement doing to prevent the next high-profile hit, especially if Foolio's death is part of a larger feud that hasn't finished playing out? The answers may be coming in the courtroom. Right now, the suspects await trial, and behind bars, they've allegedly been separated due to fears they may coordinate another attack, or worse, silence a potential cooperator. This is not over, and the more jail calls that leak, the more the truth bleeds out. Inside the jail where the suspects are being held, another disturbing reality is playing out. The power hierarchy, according to a correctional officer who spoke under anonymity, the men charged in Foolio's death haven't just been placed on protective watch. They've reportedly been separated from general population and even from each other due to fears they could either orchestrate new violence or intimidate potential cooperators. And that fear isn't unfounded. There's growing concern that one of the suspects, like Elisa Andrews' Isaiah Chance, has already started talking. While officials have yet to confirm who flipped, multiple legal sources familiar with Hillsborough County proceedings have noted that the timing of motion filings coupled with unusual visitation restrictions suggest one suspect may have agreed to cooperate with the prosecution in exchange for immunity or lesser charges. If that's true, then the leaked first jail call, the one we've already heard, was just like second call, still unreleased, could be something very different, a coded warning, a last-minute attempt to silence someone before they turn. And one chilling line from that still unreleased call, according to someone who claims to have heard it, allegedly includes the phrase, "Tell Shorty not to make this bigger than it gotta be." Vague, cryptic, but undeniably threatening. This brings us to the psychological manipulation happening behind the scenes. These suspects aren't just gang members, they're allegedly skilled manipulators. Sources inside the jail system claim that Sean Gaithright, one of the alleged shooters, has a documented history of using coercive tactics to control younger associates, including gaslighting, emotional leverage, and promises of financial support for families. He runs it like a mob, the source said. Even from inside, he's got dudes scared of him. And this psychological web could be why at least one co-defendant, possibly Andrews, may have hesitated to cooperate, even if it meant taking a murder rap, because loyalty in these crews isn't about friendship. It's about leverage and the unspoken understanding that snitching means your family becomes a target. But prosecutors are now using that same leverage in reverse by offering one suspect the chance to rewrite the narrative. Here's where things get complicated. Investigators are reportedly trying to determine if Foolio himself was aware he was being set up. Some believe his cryptic last posts, videos of him looking over his shoulder, his use of multiple hotels, suggest paranoia, maybe even foreknowledge. Was he tipped off? Was he trying to throw someone off? In one of the final posts captured before his death, Foolio says, "If you ain't got the addy, you not meant to be there." On the surface, it's just a party flex. But according to a local journalist who's covered gang violence in Jacksonville for years, that line may have been coded message. He knew he was being hunted, she says. He just didn't know when they pounced. And speaking of pouncing, the U.S. Marshals who assisted in arresting Davian and Richard Murphy did so with the kind of tactical force usually reserved federal fugitives, SWAT-style takedowns, pre-dawn raids, streets locked down. Why such intensity? Because these suspects weren't just accused shooters. They were believed to have access to hidden weapons, burner phones, network support from other gang affiliates. And more disturbingly, according to an unsealed affidavit, investigators were concerned about retaliation hits, meaning these murders weren't an isolated incident, but part of a larger war, one that may have been reignited by Foolio's murder. Even law enforcement is bracing for what's next. In an unusual move, both the Tampa Police Department and Jacksonville Sheriff's Office have increased surveillance on known gang hangouts, enlisted social media analysts to monitor threats, and even begun contact family members of potential targets, because there's one more terrifying piece of the puzzle. Revenge. In the gang world, loyalty is transactional. If someone inside the operation cooperates, not only does it make them a target, it makes their entire lineage fair game for vengeance. And if Foolio's crew believes someone flipped, then this isn't over. It's just the start. That's why every new leak matters. Every jail call, every legal motion, every phone confiscated inside that facility, because buried somewhere in those digital trails is the truth. Who pulled the strings and who got played? Finally, we unravel the truth. Beginning with an arrest no one saw coming, a shocking new defendant enters the courtroom, and a key witness makes a confession that flips the entire case on its head. The twist, a new arrest and Foolio's final secret. They thought they had their five suspects, 5 murder charges, 5 people accused of orchestrating the calculated ambush of Jacksonville rapper Julio Foolio on what was supposed to be the highlight of his year, his birthday weekend in Tampa, Florida. But just as the city began bracing for trial, a bombshell dropped. There was a 6th man. And no, he wasn't in the SUV. He didn't pull the trigger. He wasn't even in the same city when the bullets flew. But according to investigators, he may have pulled the strings. He wasn't a known shooter. Not even a street affiliate, technically. He was a former business manager, once part of Foolio's team. A man with access to calendars, hotel bookings, show schedules, and, most importantly, his trust. This individual allegedly stayed close to Foolio after a quiet fallout, still posing as an insider. But behind the scenes, law enforcement now believes he was funneling real-time information to rival affiliates tied to ATK and 1200. In a stunning turn of events, digital forensics recover WhatsApp chats from a burner phone used by suspect Elisa Andrews. And among the messages, a conversation stood out. "Let the streets take care of it. Just make sure dude not moving last minute again." The name wasn't in the chat, but prosecutors say the pattern, timing, coordination, and context matches only one person. And when they brought him in for questioning, he folded. According to sealed grand jury testimony, this sixth man admitted he believed Foolio had it coming. That Foolio had grown too paranoid, too controlling, and was planning to fire multiple members of his team just weeks after his birthday bash. So he flipped first. His reward was reportedly a 5-figure payment, deposited through a web of small cash app transfers and third-party digital wallets. In return, he shared just enough detail for the shooters to predict Foolio's moves. This included last-minute confirmation of Foolio's Holiday Inn switch, which, according to police, sealed his fate. But here's where the pain deepens. Foolio's fans, already rocked by the initial news of his murder, had no idea that someone who once stood behind the rapper on stage, flashing peace signs, holding iced-out chains, and smiling in interviews, would be implicated as part of the plot. The betrayal stung more than the bullets. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, tributes poured in. But so did speculation, theories, and rage. "Y'all snaked the realest one out the city," one fan wrote on X, formerly Twitter. "Foolio always said the ops wouldn't take him. He never expected his own team," another posted. Hashtags like #JusticeForFoolio, #6BlockForever, and #TheySetHimUp trended for days. Even some of Foolio's former rivals, yes, rivals, expressed disgust at the way he died. One underground artist from Jacksonville tweeted, "We ain't never with bruh, but that setup shit, nah, that's coward work." Perhaps one of the most polarizing voices to speak on Foolio's death was outspoken cultural critic Charleston White, known for his controversial views on rap culture and street violence. Within hours of the news breaking, Charleston posted a reaction video that immediately went viral. Some praised the honesty, others accused Charleston of dancing on the man's grave. But what made the video unforgettable was the line that followed. "Y'all keep saying, 'Rest in peace,' like peace ever existed for these boys. They were born into war, raised in war, and y'all watched it like a movie." The post had over 5 million views in 24 hours, and for many, it forced a hard pause, because as much as Foolio embraced his 6-block persona, tattoos, disses, rivalries, he was still a 26-year-old man with a mother who flew across the state to identify her son's body on what was supposed to be a celebration. The mourning wasn't limited to reposts and RIPs. Across Jacksonville and Tampa, murals of Foolio began popping up, spray-painted tributes showing his face, lyrics, and signature hand signs. In one of the most touching displays, a group of high schoolers in Jacksonville held a vigil, lighting candles and rapping along to his breakout song, Crooks. At the vigil, one teenager told local news, "He made us feel seen. Like, if you made it out of 6 block, you could make it anywhere." But the grief also bred tension. Tampa police were forced to increase patrols near the site of Foolio's murder after someone defaced the wall outside the Holiday Inn with graffiti reading, "We know who did it. This ain't over." Fear of retaliation continues to loom. Then came the most haunting twist yet. Foolio's family, while cleaning out his belongings, found a digital vault, a locked hard drive filled with audio files, photos, and voice memos. One of those recordings, now verified by forensic analysts, was dated just 11 days before his death. In it, Foolio sounds tired. Tired of beef, tired of betrayal, but most of all, tired of pretending. "I can't even sleep unless my back to the wall," he says. "It's like I'm paranoid of everybody, even the ones that call me family." He ends the memo with a grim prediction. "If something happens to me, it's gonna be one of them that smiled in my face." That recording is now being used by prosecutors in their ongoing investigation. The 6th suspect has officially been indicted. The other 5 await trial in what could be one of the most high-profile gang-related murder cases Florida has seen in years. And as the legal wheels turn, Foolio's fans remain divided. Some are demanding vengeance. Others are calling for unity, pleading with rival gangs and Foolio's remaining crew members to break the cycle before another young man ends up with a mural instead of a milestone. But one thing is clear, this wasn't just another rapper getting killed. It was a young man, Charles Jones, who rose from one of Jacksonville's roughest blocks with nothing but a mic and a voice, only to be silenced not by his enemies, but by the very people who should have protected him. And when the courtroom doors finally open, there won't just be trials, there'll be reckonings. Because Foolio didn't just die. He left behind evidence, a warning, and a legacy that demands justice. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.